Our live studio audience is always so kind. We appreciate them. Welcome in to season 3 of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host Jay, and with me today is Aaron. Hey, Aaron, how you doing today?
Another great day above ground, sir.
Love to hear it. And joining us from Dad Can We Talk is Mr. Anthony Ray himself. Anthony, how the heck are you doing today?
Man, I'm good. We're up early, but we're ready.
We're hitting it. We're getting after it early. So Anthony, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. A little bit about Dad Can We Talk. It's a platform that you started about 3 years ago, correct? And kind of just started off you talking to other dads, you just getting out there in the community, getting to know people. But what was the motivation behind it? What made you start it?
One of my main motivations was the fact that I'm an avid podcast listener, and I started off listening to podcasts, listening to true crime. I'm a big fan of that, listening to stories about serial killers, which is a little weird, but I loved it.
I'm the same way, dude. I'm the
Yeah.
exact same way. What kind of true crime podcast? Not to get distracted here, but
I was just finding just all types of. I just go on Apple Podcasts and type in serial killers or true crime, and I just found all types of stuff. And that was like my introduction to podcasts.
yep, same
And
here.
so it got a little dark for a while. I was like, I might need to stop listening to this for a couple of months. And
Cleanse
so I
your
started
system a little
finding,
bit.
yeah, I had to cleanse it myself. So I went to sports, started listening to some sports podcasts and some music podcasts. And one day I was thinking, man, I'm gonna look up some fatherhood stuff. And I found a lot, but what I noticed was I didn't feel like there were I didn't see a lot of black dads podcasting. This was maybe 2017. So this was about 6 years ago. And there weren't honestly, I didn't see not one black dad as a host for a podcast. And I'm like, wow, I don't like that. I feel like we should be we should be representative in this community also.
Absolutely.
And so I told myself, well, you know what? Let me start one, because I do have, I was in ministry at the time, and I would constantly have conversations with different guys about fatherhood and just manhood in general. And I said, you know what? The conversations that I have off camera, maybe I should start having these conversations on camera. And so that was like my motivation. Like, I wanted to really change the narrative, because even when it came to fatherhood, I felt like a lot of black dads, if you really look at the media narrative, for years, it's always been that we're missing, we're absent, deadbeats. All of these things are connected to black fatherhood. And so that wasn't, and I understand because I grew up without my dad. But since I've been a dad, I really noticed that I didn't feel like that represented me. And I didn't feel like that represented the guys that I know. I know a lot of active dads. And so I was like, man, I just don't think it's fair. I don't think we get a fair shot at, being represented in the world. So I told myself I wanted to highlight the good dads, because okay, yeah, everyone highlights the bad dads, but who ever puts a spotlight on good black dads? And I know hundreds of them. And so I made a point, I made a post on Facebook, and I made a whole long post, and I'm like, man, I can go, months and months interviewing different dads. And so I made it a point to prove that to people. And so, as me and you talked about before we got on, I'm at 108 dads right now. Not all black dads, but just dads that I wanted to highlight, guys that I knew personally. My brother has full custody of his son, and has for years. He was a single dad for years. I have a lot of friends that may not live with their children, but are super active dads.
Mm,
I know a lot of married dads like myself. I know a lot of just active dads and guys that are going through multiple different situations, but we all have this one thing in common. We love our children. And
absolutely.
so I want to give these men the opportunity to tell their story from their mouths, because a lot of times we hear the story from, our moms or our aunts or our grandmothers or other
Mm,
women in the community. And I want to give men the opportunity to speak for themselves.
absolutely. No, I love that, man. I love how you just kept saying the word active, like active
Mm,
dads being active. I think that's so important as we, go through, this journey of being a father. We have to be active. And
mm.
there's a lot of active dads. There's a lot of dads care.
Yeah.
Granted, there's a lot of dads who don't care.
Yep.
There are plenty of deadbeats, but I feel like for every one deadbeat dad, there's at least four good dads out there trying, that want their
Exactly.
kids, that want to be involved, that are getting shafted by the court some way or another, because
Mm,
that's just the country we live in even today, where it's just automatically you're a woman, you're more eligible caretaker. Like I was at the grocery store on Saturday morning, um, kind of related. I have my two girls with me because we're just doing our grocery shop for the week. Um, and this dude looks at me and looks at my kids, like, oh, you got stuck with the kids, huh?
uh,
I was like, got stuck? I didn't get stuck with them. He's like, oh, well, they can be a handful. I'm like, no, not really. They're pretty good kids, actually. I'm just blessed to be
yeah.
able to have them and hanging out with them. And he's like, oh, well, good luck. And it's like, do you not think I can handle having my kids at the grocery store? Like,
Exactly.
you just assume that I got told, here's a list, take the kids and go.
Stuck with them.
Yeah, no, I'm not stuck with them. Not stuck with them at
Yeah,
all.
and
That's
it this is something that we touched on last season as well. It's this is a lot of the stigma that we have to break down as men in our generation. Our previous generations, our parents, they had to be that hard-nosed man to, make it through the times that they were living through, and that's not the case anymore. You can be the soft man with the hard side on the back burner. You know what I mean? But it's still there. It's very crucial for it to still be there. But yeah, I think we're afforded a great opportunity that our parents weren't. We're able to be gentle and really connect with our kids emotionally and heal all that trauma that we went through.
Love that. Love that. If I can make a point also, I love what you just said, Aaron. It's a super great point. But even when I look at you look at TV, uh, television shows, you look at cartoons. Think about it. Every time the mom leaves the house, it's like, okay, honey, I'm going to the grocery store. I'll be back. I'm gonna leave the kids home with you. What usually happens? The mom
panic,
comes home
chaos.
and like the house is burned down. And it makes us look like we're such a joke as men. And that's one thing that I've always hated. Like we're just so trash
Yeah,
as caregivers. And I'm like, that does not represent me. And I feel like the narrative surrounding fatherhood, period, black men, white men, they make us look like we're such jokes. And that's one thing that I just never stood for, because the media might not do it intentionally, but that's how they make us look. And so I think that's one thing that we our generation of men, we're really changing that, and we're showing people that, yeah, we're not just babysitters and all of this other stuff that they put on us, but we're
hmm,
real dads. We're real parents.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and I love I love that you took it there because as much as I love my wife, I'm definitely the fun parent.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
definitely more creative with my kids. Like my kids, when we have time together, it's a blast, man. So it's just I feel like there's a big dynamic change coming, and I feel like it's going to change the world, man. Having a loving, caring father with a open mindset can change the world. As well as a mother on the same boat. You know, it's like there's nothing that can stop you. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
No, I agree there. It's the cartoons did a really bad job when we were growing up of kind of scaring us out of wanting to be parents. Where it's like,
The
oh man, I'm gonna have
Simpsons.
Simpsons, well, anything on Nick, anything on Cartoon Network. You either never saw a dad involved,
Mm,
or B, when you did, it was portrayed like you said, like really hard, impossible to do it. Men
mm,
can't care for kids, and that's kind of stuck and just kind of like without. I think it's an unconscious bias where it's like, oh, look at him trying. He's
mm.
doing such a good job. Look at him babysitting his kids. It's like, I'm not babysitting my kids. I'm taking care of my kids. you know,
Hey, but you know what? Even though it's a negative stigma, I mean, it kind of works out in our favor. Like, if you're not a deadbeat dad, you get praise from everyone. So
true. It does feel kind
it's
of good.
like, yeah, it's like a balance. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah. So,
Definitely, definitely.
so
so,
Anthony, oh, go ahead.
no, the first question I want to lead out with is, as a black father in this time, what are some things that you have on your mind for your kids growing up? Like, what are some things you would like to teach them and really educate them about?
One of my main things is teaching them their self image, teaching them, that they're important. I have two girls and a boy, and so one thing with me with teaching my girls is that you don't have to follow society's beauty standards. And in all honesty, and I've done it before. If you go on Google and if you type in beautiful women, just type in the words beautiful women. Um, Most likely the first maybe 10 images would be honestly of white women, most of them with long hair. And that's just, and I'm like, wow, why does that the only portrayal or the most portrayed image of a beautiful woman? And so if I'm a young girl and I just so happen to type that into Google, I would think, wow, that's what a beautiful woman looks like. But beauty comes in all sizes, all types, and so different hairstyles. And so my wife, she's natural hair, has locks, and I love that. And when my wife decided to go natural some years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago, I was so excited because I was never the type to I wouldn't say never, but over the years I've grown to love women in their natural state. And so when my wife decided to go natural, I was like the biggest fan, and I'm like, I love that. I want to see you in your, like, with your own hair, with your own everything. Like, I just love you for you. And so for my daughters to see their mom in that way, it gives them also confidence that, you don't have to look like the women on TV. You don't have to look like the women on Instagram, Facebook, and everything else. What you see on TikTok, you don't have to look like any of those women. Be you, and love who you are as a black woman. And so I'm just really trying to raise my daughters in that way and let them know that they're beautiful inside out. And even also with my son, loving on him, allowing him, teaching him what it is to be a man, and knowing our place in society. We're not anything that all the negative stigmas that's been placed on us. We're not any of that, and just really lifting them up and letting them know that they're loved, they're cared for, they're beautiful, and that's my son and my daughters. Just knowing that I don't care what anyone else says about you. Always know that you are beautiful and you don't have to be anyone else. You don't have to look like anyone else. Be genuinely yourself. And so, I don't have any hair on my head. I'm a bald man. And I love myself, and I make jokes about myself all the time. They make jokes, but I'm confident in myself, and showing my kids that you can be confident. You don't have to be anyone else. I'm the only person in my house with a ball. My son has hair. My wife has locks. One of my oldest daughter has locks. Uh, my youngest daughter, and I'm the only bald one in the house. You know, but I'm confident. That I don't have to be everyone else. I'm just gonna be daddy. I'm gonna be me, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Um, it doesn't matter how anyone else looks at me. I'm gonna look at myself and be me. So I think that's a hard thing for a lot of Black children in our time right now. A lot of them feel like they have to look like someone else instead of just being themselves. So that's something I drill into my children at all times.
Absolutely. It's so actually I searched beautiful women when I as you were talking there after you mentioned them. I'm like, I'm just gonna see. I'm just gonna see. Yeah, there was I looked at 30 pictures. There was three of them that had a woman of color.
Mm,
Um, so three for 30, that's 1/10, you know,
yeah.
and that it actually reminds me of when I went and saw Wakanda Forever. When I
Mm,
went and saw the Black Panther movie, it was actually like a really sweet moment. But um, I think Marvel knocked out of the park on that movie for a couple reasons. But the I was leaving, Marvel end credits. They kind of take a little while, so I was standing by like the tunnel to like leave the theater, and there was this little girl there. I looked at her. She was African American, and she said to her mom and dad, she said, "Mom, I love Shooty. She's so beautiful."
mm,
And like that was her little way of saying like she looks like me. She's beautiful.
mm,
I relate to her. I get it. It's a girl and she looks like me. And so I thought that was just like a really powerful moment how it's like when it is portrayed, it's huge, it's impactful because it's such a
mm.
positive impact. Little boys have it all over the place. They have superheroes of color, they have
Yep.
different role models of color, they have all these different people of color, but little girls, they don't really have that. Then
Mm,
it's unfortunate, but it is important, race aside, to just teach our kids, like you're saying, to love themselves, to be
mm.
confident in themselves. Um, because who knows, they might not always be in a place where they look like everyone else and where
Exactly.
they're comfortable. Like for me personally, like I went from living in Washington when I was like 13, and then I was in Hawaii. Um, I was way out of place in Hawaii. I did not belong,
Yeah.
and I ended up making some really good friends. I was really close to people, and then from there, I was in East Oakland, um, California, and then I definitely didn't fit in. 100% didn't fit in, and but through it all, I just remembered like ki- kind of who I am. You adapt to your surroundings and whatnot, but I wish that my dad would have told me like, just be you. You'll be fine. Just be you. Um, that's a lot of what I did, but it's important that we give that same message to our kids because
Mm,
that's what we want. That's what we want from them at the end of the day. We just want them to be people who are not conceited or too egotistical, but kids who are, confident in their own skin. That can be in any
mm.
crowd, in any room, and just know that they're there. They're good.
Yes, sir. Man, I had an issue that came up a few years ago. So my kids were going to a private school that's
Mm.
majority white. And so at one point for about a month, my wife put some faux locks in her hair, just fake locks, just to she put them in for about a month. And when my wife was telling her that she had the faux locks in her hair, but she had her real locks up under, so they were a little shorter at the time, and she was giving them some time to grow. And so when my wife was gonna take them out, my daughter, she just was hysterical, and she's like, oh my God, I don't want to take them out, and people are gonna think I'm ugly and all of this stuff. And I'm like, I'm kind of listening to the conversation, And
Mm.
I don't know, I just got upset and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, who said that you're ugly? Like, who told you that? And she was like, no, no one said it. I'm like, no, obviously someone told you that you're ugly. Like, why would you say that you're ugly when mommy is about to take your hair out when your hair literally looks like what's in your hair right now is just a little shorter? And I'm like, who said that to you at school? And so she reassured me that no one said that at school. You know, it was just something that she was thinking that people would think. And, you know, it kind of hurt me to my heart. Like, wow, like, baby, why would you think that about yourself? You know, like, don't look at what other people, you know, a lot of the other girls, like I say, the other girls at her school had this long hair. And I'm like, that's nothing. That has no significance of anything. Like, that's them. Don't let that make you feel bad about yourself. Like, you're so beautiful. And you've always known that. I've always told you that. Everyone else tells you that. Why would, like, what in your mind? And I think she just kind of, like, that was my first time really seeing it in person, where my daughter just kind of freaked out for a quick second.
Mm.
And you know, I just had to really reassure her that, you know, of her beauty. And it's a real thing, you know. And I know it's just not with black girls. It's with, I'm sure, with all types of young girls, you know, because there's such a, you know, you can't walk in a Walgreens or CVS without seeing, you know, this perfect woman on a poster. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you look in magazines, you see all of these perfect women with the perfect hair and the perfect skin, and it's like that stuff is so fake, you
Yeah.
know. And we have to be able to teach our daughters that, you know, like, I love my wife's flaws. She's not the most perfect woman in the world, you know. And it's like, and I love it. You know, I love her flaws. That's the thing that drawed me to her, you know, it's her flaws. And I want to love her flaws and love her like that, you know, and make sure that she knows that I don't want you to be the perfect woman. The perfect woman is fake, you know. So I think that's something we got to drill into our women.
Absolutely.
So, my next follow up question for you, I love where you touched in there. How do you feel as being a father to both, daughters and a son? You know, what's the dynamic like educating them like on how to treat the other sex? So like with your daughters, like what are you really trying to impact on them about how to treat men, and the same as with your son? Like what are some things you say that you're trying to instill into your son and your daughters?
Being fair. So with my son, you know, so my son and my youngest daughter, they're about 11 months apart. So they're like really close in age. They're 6 and 7, and they fight all the time, man, all the time. It's like like the story of my life right now as a dad. These two fighting children, but uh, I pay attention to them, and I see my daughter antagonize him so much. Now sometimes there's times when he will hit her, and I get on his behind about hitting girls. And I'm telling him, do not put your hand on your sister. You do not do that. You don't put your hand on anyone, period. But definitely as a boy, do not put your hand on girls. You don't do that. And I'm like just drilling that into him. But I also get on my daughter and tell her, keep your hands off of your brother. You do not put your hands on people. Keep your hands to yourself, because after he hits you, then you come crying to me. Now you want me to feel bad for you, and I'm not just going to always get on him, you know. And I always, because he'll come to me and he'll say, well, she hit me first. And I'm like, well, you come and tell on her and I'll get on her, and she'll be in trouble. Once you put your hands on him, on her, now both of you get in trouble, you know. So being fair with both of them, because a lot of people would just get on the son and say, oh, you don't put your hands on girls, rightfully so. But I also teach my daughters, keep your hands to yourself.
Mm.
If you don't want anyone else putting their hands on you, then don't put your hands on them, you know, because now there's two wrongs. and just teaching them to be fair, like I'm just trying to be fair with both of them,
Mm-hmm.
with my girls and my boy, like not just being one-sided. And so, and I teach, they're young, 10, 7, and 6, but teaching them valuable lessons. Once you get older, daddy won't always be there to save you and to teach you these things. I'm trying to teach you this at a young age. I was never a person that got into fights. I grew up my whole life around, I grew up most of my majority of my childhood. I lived in the hood, and I never got into a fight ever in my life. Why? And I teach my kids this all the time. The reason why I never got into fights was because, for one, I kept my hands to myself. Not that I've never almost got into a fight. Every time it was about to be a fight, someone would say what they would do to me, what they want to do to me, and I heard all of that. But as long as you don't put your hands on me, I don't have a reason to put my hands on you. And you know what? I don't know what it's like to be punched in my face because no one never did it. People talked about doing it, but they never did it. And so that never gave me a reason to put my hands on someone else. And so for that reason, I stayed to myself. If I didn't like a person, I leave you alone and I don't deal with you. And so teaching my kids that type of stuff, um, and that's just one example of, teaching my kids to be fair. I'm not gonna just fuss at my son and not get on you because you're wrong. Also, yeah, he shouldn't be hitting you, but you should also not be hitting him or antagonizing him. Leave him alone,
Mm-hmm.
because you're provoking him. And then once he does something, now you come crying to me playing the victim. Well, obviously you're not the victim. You've been antagonizing him for a whole hour. So yeah, stuff like that, man. I'm pretty serious about, man. So and that's just one example, but yeah, just being fair.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great example there because yes, you're teaching them how to be fair, but you're also teaching them how to control like their impulse. You're teaching them how to
Mm,
control that fight or flight response. You're teaching them to be
mm,
decent humans, you know, and you're teaching them something that
exactly.
they're going to take into their relationships, like you're
Mm,
modeling that within the home, which is so important. You're like, well, my dad never did anything to my mom. My brothers never did anything to me. I never did anything to them. I knew not to antagonize them because if I antagonize them, then that leads to a fight. If it leads to a fight, it could get physical. If it gets physical, then it goes down this path. And then,
yep.
I was a teenager growing up in East Oakland in the hood. And, I learned those same lessons. If you don't throw first, you don't hit first, then you're not going to get hit back. If you're the one
Mm,
antagonizing and trying to cause it, then yeah, you might get hit. um,
yeah.
but normally, no one wants to be the one that throws the first punch. You know,
Hmm.
that's what my dad taught me is like, if you get hit, you get hit first. Don't be the first one to hit because it's gonna be worse on
Hmm.
you. But
Yep.
if you were minding your own business, you weren't doing nothing, and then you got hit, then you're clear. You're
Mm,
clear for takeoff. Kind of
yes,
thing. But
sir.
if you're not, if you're minding your business, keep to yourself. That was a big one. Was to keep to myself.
Yep.
Because it's not gonna do anything. Nothing's gonna happen to you if you're not talking to no one. You're not instigating.
Hmm.
Um,
And,
so
and,
I
and every now and then you might have people that just want to be a-holes
oh
and,
yeah.
put their hands on you. But for the most part, like, if someone wanted to fight me, you're just a bad person, because I've never been the type to antagonize people. I've just always been a fun loving person. Even when I was a kid, I want
Mm,
to laugh, I want to joke, I like sports, genuinely, I'm just a nice person. For the most part, I kind of stay to myself, but I have my friends. The guys that were my friends, we were friends. That's who I hung out with. People
mm,
that I really didn't know. Now, if we just so happened to cross paths and we talked with one another, it was always just cool conversation. And I always have been known as a cool person. So even into adulthood, once I became a young man, same thing. If I don't like a person, man, I do not deal with you. I don't want to be in the same place as you. I'm not gonna say anything to you. So like if I end up getting into a fight, bro, that is like, you got to be a bad person, because I don't do anything to anyone. Literally, no one should be that mad with me to the point to where you want to fight me. So just teaching my kids the same thing. Be a nice person. You know, if you don't like someone, that's fine. You don't have to like everyone in the world. Everyone is not going to be your friend. Everyone will not like you. In that case, you remove yourself from that person and ignore them. It's that simple. I think your sound is out.
My bad.
There
So
you go.
your kids are starting to get older. They're starting probably to realize some things about the world, that it's not a nice place.
Mhm.
And what are you doing from your perspective, or what are you doing to try to help them understand why someone might not like them just because of the way that they present themselves, the way that they look, the way that they're walking down the street? They like, I'm sure your kids are great kids, great people, you
Mhm.
know, and obviously the world's cruel. So what kind of things are you doing in that instance? Um, if you need me to clarify, I can clarify, but I think I know it. You know what I mean.
Yeah. Uh, Mostly teaching them history. I'm a big history person. And I I have them like my oldest daughter. She's big on books, so helping having her read different books and stuff. Um, One of the books was the story of Ruby Bridges, which was I think she was like one of the first young women, black women, to integrate a white school. And her story is a big one where she was just a young girl. I forgot her age, but she was really young.
Well, yeah,
And
I've heard Ruby. I've heard that story.
yeah, and showing them that story on how some people, because the question for my daughter was, well, why did they hate her so much? I'm like, that's just how it is.
She was
Especially back
six.
then,
She was
it was
6 in
crazy.
1960.
Sheesh, 6 years old, man, and she had to go through that,
Mm-hmm.
and and that was a big thing. And so when my daughter asked the question, well, why did they hate her so much? And just teaching her that there's some people literally that would just hate you just because of you. You don't have to do anything to people and they'll hate you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do anything about that. All you can do is live your life. You look at Ruby. Ruby just went on about her day, went to school, and I'm sure it probably messed with her mental a little bit. But thank God, she had her teacher there. Her teacher continued to teach her.
Yes.
She had her parents,
Mm-hmm.
and she did what she had to do. You just keep it moving. You can't allow the hate of others to allow that to affect you. You got to keep moving. And so teaching them about history, the history of race in America, I just think it's an important thing. Just
Absolutely.
that dynamic will probably always be there. you know it's just, especially, and we live in Florida, and the city that we live in right now, Gainesville, we live in a city right outside of Gainesville called Newberry.
Mm-hmm.
And Newberry has a big time history of racism. I think there was like 5 lynchings here some years ago. And so we just live in this area, so helping them to understand the history of our state. Florida was a big, yes, and we live in North Florida,
Mm-hmm.
North Central Florida. Northern Florida was like the super, super, super racist part. And so a lot of that still exists here in this area. I was just watching a documentary uh 2 nights ago about some stuff that happened. The FBI found these KKK members that were working. This was like 2016.
Oh
They
man.
3 guys got arrested in 2016. They were KKK members, and an FBI agent infiltrated the KKK, and he was basically, he was wired. And they made a whole documentary about it. It's on
Dang.
Hulu. And this is like this is 2016, man. Like what is that, 7 years ago? And they all worked at a prison here in Florida. And it's like literally 15, about 20 minutes down the road from where we live right now, at the prison down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's that close to home.
That's wild.
And so yeah, it's some wild stuff. So just really teaching my children their history and letting them know that everyone will not like you. I'm just here to let you know that's the
Yep.
reality of life, and everyone doesn't have to like you.
No,
That's fine, but do not allow them to affect who you are.
absolutely.
My biggest thing, don't allow them to affect you. I know there's some people that don't like me, even at my job. Okay, cool. You know what? I'm gonna make you even more mad because I'm gonna continue to excel. I'm gonna continue to be me. I'm gonna continue to be just who I am. I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna be nice to you. I might not be your best friend, but I'm gonna be cordial. How you doing, man?
Yeah,
Keep
I'm
it moving.
still gonna talk to you, still gonna interact with you. I'm not gonna ignore you. I'm not gonna blow you off. I'm not gonna pretend you don't
That's it.
exist. I'm gonna intentionally make sure you know you exist in my world still. I'm gonna intentionally still say hi to you. I'm still intentionally gonna make you feel like you're someone, and that maybe we don't
Exactly.
talk in depth, but I'm still gonna interact with you because that's the kind of
Got
person
to.
I am. That's my reflection of myself. And I love that you brought up Ruby Bridges, because the reason that she got into that school was because that city, New Orleans, had given all the African American school children a test to determine which students could enter the all white school. And Bridges was one of the few who actually passed and then was selected for the enrollment, which means
Mm,
that, the deeper meaning there was that she belonged. Well,
mm,
everyone in that school knew she belonged. They knew she was smart
mm.
enough. They knew she was capable enough. And I feel like that's an important message to for your daughters to see, and it's an important message for all children to know. Like, you're here because you belong. Like, that's one thing I try to promote on my field when I'm coaching any sport. Right now I'm coaching baseball, coaching t-ball. I have two kids on
Mm,
the spectrum.
mm,
And then I have you know, my daughter, obviously, that's you know my daughter. So I have two girls. I have two kids on the spectrum. I have you know different races and ethnicities on my team as well. Um, but it's like we all belong. We're all on the same team. We all belong
mm.
here, and it's just really teaching my kids like to play and interact with those other kids like they're just normal kids, because they can obviously very easily tell that they're different.
Easily.
And one of my boys, excuse me, one of my boys that I have, um, I have two that are really good. They're really good for being 6 years old. Um, they should probably be in a higher level, but that's fine. But I sometimes I make them play with the two boys that are on the spectrum, and I have to kind of tell them like, remember who you're playing with. You have to be a little bit more. You can't throw as hard. You
Mm,
can't, you know, throw as crazy, and they kind of have to wheel it in a little bit, which I think is good for them to teach them just like different skills. And I have to do this with all the kids. It's like you have to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more focused. You can't get upset, kind of thing. It's like trying to just teach them that we're just playing a game. It's all that matters, and that's the same message to translate to kids in these different situations, these different places. It's like, yeah, you might not look the same, but you're all here at school for the same thing, and you're all here on playing the sport to do the same thing. It doesn't matter. You all belong here. You guys all belong.
mm.
So that sense of belonging is super important to instill, I feel, and it goes a long way to just reminding your child that they're just as important and just as equal.
Mm.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's just a lesson in humility. Just teaching your kids to, just you don't see that kind of stuff. I'm privileged because here in Southern California, it's a big melting pot. So
Yeah.
that's, we don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. So, I really feel for you. I know how it can be on the East Coast. I have family in Tennessee. I have family in Kentucky.
Mm.
Jewel does too. It's like
It's
we,
real.
I only feel, touches of it. I have never experienced it myself. Even when we were out there, I didn't experience any of that. And so it's like I know it's there. I hear about it all the time. So it's like all you can do is just really teach your kids, like you said. Just be humble. Be that person that's just gonna power through it. Like, you're not gonna affect me. I'm just gonna smile at you and continue being great. I loved when you said that, because that's
Mm.
all you really can do, man. And I think the rest of the country eventually will shape up to be like how it is here. You know, all our kids are going to intermingle. And I definitely think our generation and our kids' generation is going to break that wall down completely. You know, I think that's gone in the next 20, 30 years.
Let's hope for it.
Yeah,
Let's
it
hope
literally
for it.
just has to die off um, at this point. And I don't even mean that in like a negative way, but I mean, kind of does just have to die off. But at the same time, it's one of those things that's taught to like keep
Yeah,
going, and
yeah,
it's
definitely.
taught. It's not a natural behavior. No one's born racist. No
At
one's
all.
no one's born to hate someone else, especially not a kid, especially not a
Mm,
child. Like children, they don't have
mm,
that capacity in their
at
minds
all.
to hate. Um, Kids are smart. They understand. They understand. They're very aware when they're in a situation. They're aware of these different things. I mean, there's a difference between making your kid aware of color and then teaching them like stereotypes, teaching them a limited knowledge that's going to do them a
Mm,
disservice instead of like you're doing, teaching them a history, teaching them the background, sharing stories with them. Like for my daughters, my dad's half black. I'm a quarter African American. My daughters are an eighth.
mm,
Um, so they're I don't remember. Anyways, but my when it was Black History Month, my daughter's 5, and so I'm like, this would be a good opportunity to try to start teaching her about like some of these parts of her, um,
mm,
because I feel like that's super important. I mean, they're parts of me, they're parts of her. Yeah, she doesn't appear it whatsoever, um, and so, but I was trying to teach her these different stories, and it was one thing that I got her the shirt from Target because I think Target's done a really good job the last couple of years with their
yeah.
um, like clothing selection during Black History Month to like highlight, African American artists and all these things. It's been really cool. So I got her this shirt that had like 4 different faces on it, and it was hard for she didn't want to wear it to school because she felt like if she was asked a question, like she couldn't talk about it. She didn't understand
Mm,
like what it meant. And I'm like, am I teaching her this wrong? Because I'm really just trying to teach her like the differences and these stories so that she understands kind of why she's learning these different things at school. Like, why is she learning about Rosa Parks? Why is she learning about Dr. King? But that's pretty much where it stopped was Rosa Parks, Dr. King,
yeah.
which is important. Those are 2 great stories, but there's so many more, like the one you mentioned, you know.
Mm,
And it's sad, it's disheartening at the same time. But it's like I want you to know that this is part of you. This is a part of you that you should be proud of, that you should honor and give the time and space for. So,
mm. Yeah, and I think that stuff is just, like I say, just really teaching that history. And I just think all parents should just teach history as it is, like, and
mm-hmm,
be honest about it. When you're honest about it, and, you can really point things out. The kids, like you say, kids are smart enough to realize, okay, all right, I understand that. I see that. And now they're just kind of aware. But I think more than anything, we have to be the examples of that to live it out for them,
mm-hmm,
because we can tell them all of these things about history and all of that, but now we have to live it. I think more than anything, kids learn from watching, and we're their biggest example. So I have my kids with me everywhere: grocery store, the bank, uh, uh, times when I do podcasts, sometimes they have to come out with me. Taken them out to do ministry in different places. Uh, they're just always out with me, and they see how I interact with all types of people. They see me in when it's, a professional setting. They see me when, I'm out in the neighborhood and I'm dealing with young men, or I'm dealing with other dads. They see how I deal with other women that's not their mom. They see me how I deal with all types of people. They see me at the basketball court. They see me when I take them to the playground. They see me everywhere.
mm-hmm.
And so they get the opportunity, and they always ask, Daddy, how do you have so many friends? Everywhere we go, I'm running into someone who I might know, and some people that I don't know, honestly, they might have heard of my podcast, and they're like, "You're the guy that does that. Can we talk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me," or whatever. And my kids are like, Daddy, how do you know him? I'm like, I don't.
Don't.
I mean, I just met him today, I talk to people like you would think that's been my friend for 10 years, the way that I talk with people,
Mm-hmm.
and so when they see that and then I explain to them, I just met that person today, or I speak to someone and they say, well, Daddy, was that your friend? No, he doesn't have to be my friend for me to be cordial. He doesn't have to be my friend in order for me to be friendly. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be my friend in order for me to treat him like a friend, you know. And my kids are learning that. So I like to watch them when they go to the playground. I take them to different playgrounds all around the city. And I like to see, just watch them, how they interact with people. And they do a really good job with making friends, and sometimes they'll stare. And I'm like, I'll go over to them like, why are you staring at people? Don't stare at people, man. That's not cool. And allow them, if you're gonna stare at them, at least go and say hi. Ask them what their name is. Don't just stare at people. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they'll go and say, hey, do you want to play? And the kids are like, cool. And then they're playing tag for 10 minutes. So just teaching them how to be a decent human being,
Mm-hmm.
be friendly. You don't have to be their best friend, but don't stare at people. At least speak and say, hey, how are you? Say something.
Yes.
Don't just look at
Yes.
people. It's weird.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Well, Anthony, we're getting pretty close here on time, but I just wanted to touch on a couple things here. Fatherhood, family, faith. How has that all kind of played into the equation for you to this point? What have you gotten from applying like your faith to your family into your fathering journey to get to where you are now?
My faith is everything, honestly. If I didn't have my faith, I honestly don't think I would still be married. Um, Next month, well, in like 11 days, I'll be on my 11th. My 11th year anniversary.
That's awesome.
I don't think.
Congratulations.
Yep. So I don't think that without my faith, I would still be married to this day. I don't think I would be the father that I am. Um, I just wouldn't be the man that I am, period, because that informs, my faith. I look at the world from a biblical sense, and I also look at the world. I don't think I don't look at the Bible from a traditional sense. I look at it and I see me. I see, people like me. I see us. I see black people. I see us. Like I see us being these great people. I see all of that. So I don't look at it from a traditional sense where it's just these one people. I see everyone in it, and so that informs my worldview. And I can look at people and look at my kids, my wife, my family members, my friends. I can see us, and I love people, man. And I also understand that there's some evil stuff that happens in this world, and there's some evil people, and that's just reality. And so that keeps me grounded and helps me understand that, you know, I have to be the example for my wife, for my kids, and for my community. And in order for me to be the man that I have to be, I have to look to a higher power. I have to look to the Most High. Without him, I can't be this person. I literally can't. Like I've tried, and I've veered away at times. And that's when I find myself getting in the most trouble. It's when I veer away from those principles and those laws and those statutes. When I veer away from that stuff, that's when I find myself in trouble, and I do things that I probably shouldn't be doing, and I say things I shouldn't be saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so it keeps me on a straight and narrow. It keeps me on a path and allows me to be this person who I am today, that everyone looks at and says, man, that's a great guy. And I'm like, yeah, only because I have this thing living inside of me that informs me and leads me into righteousness, man, doing things right,
Absolutely.
treating people right. And
Mm-hmm.
so it has everything to do with my faith, my family, everything. My faith has everything to do with my life, literally.
I love it. I love it. Well, I had to give you an opportunity to talk about that because I know it's so important to you. It's important to me personally as well. Um,
Mm.
it's important to us here to have that. That's part of the equation here. For us. Obviously there's some people that it's not for them. they feel
Mm,
like it's not for them, and that's okay. We still love them the same, but um,
straight up.
it's important that we believe and we have that faith to pass on to our kids and to pass on and to express and to find community and to find just all the goodness and to get more out of life to a point. But last question here: if you were to give advice to a dad who's struggling and just really going through it, down on his luck, and just needs help getting back up, what kind of advice do you have for him?
Ooh. I would say, um, go to the Most High, man. Go to our God, go to the scriptures and allow that to give you that strength and that encouragement that you are better. Because it's honestly, it's difficult being a dad. I've been going the last maybe 2.5 years for me have been like the most difficult time of my fatherhood journey as a man, period. It's been difficult. It's been rough in marriage and being a dad and dealing with everything that life throws at you. It's been difficult. And I've been down on my luck at times. And when I get there, you know, it encourages me to know that regardless of my faults, regardless of my failures, regardless of my downfalls, everywhere where I fall short, I know that I can always get up. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm always encouraged by this saying where it says that you a failure isn't a man that falls. Because you fall, that doesn't mean you're a failure. The failure is the man that fails to get back up
Mm-hmm.
after he falls. So, every time I fall and I get down on my luck, I know that I can get back up. And when I'm having a hard time, I get around some other men that can encourage me. I call on my most trusted friends, the ones that won't judge me, but the ones that'll hold me accountable and tell me that, nah, man, you got to get back up. You're too
Mm-hmm.
great to stay down. You, you, I need you, and being around men like that
Mm-hmm.
will encourage me and keep me uplifted, and it's difficult. That's what I would tell a man, you're not the only one. You're not the only one going through it. You're not the only one that's, burdened, especially in the time that we're in right now. Everything going on in the country. It's difficult, man. Life is not a cakewalk. And when you have children, people that you're looking to, it's just hard at times. So keep your head up, keep pushing, keep it moving, and don't ever feel like you can't get back up because you failed.
True. I love that, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I definitely appreciate it. It was a pleasure having you. Um, Tell the people where they can find you.
Uh, you can find me at www.dadcanwetalk.com. That's the podcast website. It'll lead you to everything else. The YouTube channel is there. You can find the audio podcast there on the website where you can listen to all the episodes streaming. You can find me on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Dad Can We Talk, Instagram at Dad Can We Talk, Facebook at Dad Can We Talk, or you can find me on my Facebook at Anthony Richard Ray. Um, and I think that's it. You can go on Google and just type in "Dad, can we talk?" and all types of stuff will
True.
pop up.
True.
So, yeah, you can find me in those ways. Don't hesitate to reach out if you got questions or anything. I'm an open book. Yeah, if you reach out, I'll definitely get back to you for sure.
Well, again, Anthony, it was a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. We definitely appreciate it. It was great talking to you, getting your insight. Thanks for helping us kick off season 3.
Oh yeah,
It's going to be good.
pleasure.
It's going to be great. We're excited. But again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for listening today. We'll catch you next week.